Nice to see you.
Right. Thanks, Marla, for joining us. Could you let us know? Could you give us a background into Vodler? Who are Vodler?
Right, Vodler's a technology. Ooh, quite loud with my. Vodler's an innovative technology company out of Sweden. We are unique in that we distribute video over the public internet using P2P. So we probably have our roots in the pirate scene out of Scandinavia, but we've been around for about 7 or 8 years, and we've been committed to being legal and secure and to optimizing video over the internet. We commercialized the technology ourselves, launching the first OTT platform in Scandinavia in 2010. And in the last 9 months, we've moved solely into enterprise software. And now we're trying to bring that experience around the world.
Okay, great. Just backtracking a little bit too. The Scandinavian market's quite interesting, isn't it? If you believe the numbers, that is, there's very high OTT and SVOD take-up in the Scandinavian
There's
market.
great internet. You get 46 meg to the house. You get 40 meg on your phone. I mean, it's extraordinary. There's a great appetite for content. There's a lot of players. What we found was it's a crowded market. It's there's not a lot of people, and so with the big broadcasters, it's getting very crowded. Netflix, HBO, etc., going direct. But yeah, I think the broadband has meant that it's been one of the leaders.
Is it true to say that a lot of Scandinavian pay TV operators, their charges are, for the digital TV, not the analog, charges are higher than many other European countries, and when SVOD players come along, they appear quite cheap in comparison. So reasonable, I should say.
Yes, but I think it's about content, and where we're seeing the players who are successful are the players with content, which actually are the broadcasters. So Viasat becomes Viaplay because they have the rights.
Okay.
So we see it more a content than a price comparison.
Okay, great. And you mentioned before you're expanding beyond Scandinavia.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited about the next generation of content delivery and video on demand. We think it's much more than just pay TV going online. One of my colleagues is fond of saying everyone just slaps play onto the end, and now it becomes an online service. What we're excited about is really the next generation of where content's being consumed, which is number one in emerging markets, places where Netflix isn't yet. It's a wide open space. And number two, we're looking at new platforms like chat services. Okay. So for example, WeChat in China, or Snapchat, if you've seen Vice. So a new content producer, not a traditional broadcaster, with a new platform, not just a Netflix or a Play online. And that's what's really interesting to us, to partner with these kind of people who are going direct to the millennials.
Okay. You mentioned China. That's a tough market to get into, do you think?
It's crazy. I mean, from personal experience, we don't speak Chinese, they don't speak English, the culture is very different. But having said that, we recently brought on a new CEO who's just back from living in Shanghai. Oh. So we're having much better success. It's very important to have a local partner, local knowledge, local presence, and I think that's, from personal experience, we've learned that the hard way. But it's so exciting, so many opportunities there.
Okay, and how do you monetize your product in emerging markets? I mean, credit cards obviously are prevalent.
We're now in a B2B model, so we license our technology to the platform.
Okay.
And we charge on a gigabit streamed.
So you're not billing the consumers direct then?
No, that's a huge challenge. I think it's a huge challenge for take-up of pay services in emerging markets.
Yeah.
In particular, I spend a lot of time looking at Africa. Huge, because the operator is the only one who has the relationship, and they take. You can't, if you have to pay your content owners 70%, 60-70% for rights, and then you need to pay your platform 50%. Yeah.
It doesn't add up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Yeah. I mean, and what about exclusivity of content and original content? How important do you think those factors are?
I think they're very important. I actually have worked in content more than technology. I've been doing content for about 20 years, and content drives. Everyone says content king, whatever, platform queen or whatever. It's content. People will watch crap. Good content in crap conditions. I think HBO's experience speaks to that in some ways. I think that exclusivity it's balkanizing the market, but it's causing people to pick up more than one one product. The question is how many times you open your wallet. And in my experience, having looked at this, for example, say in the music business, you pay once, you pay twice, maybe. And so I think what's going to be interesting is, especially say in the US, where this is much further along, there's so many different fiefdoms. And I understand why it's happening from a business point of view, but from a consumer point of view, I think we're going to start to see a resurgence of piracy. You're only going to pay a few times, and either you do without or you get it for free, and there are plenty of places to get it for free.
That's interesting you said that. I mean, don't quote me on these figures, but I think approximately Nielsen in the States came out with a figure of just over 40% of households took SVOD services. Of the total TV households, 10% subscribe to two services, and 2.5% of TV households, not just the total SVO bond, but TV households, took more than three, subscribed to more than 3 services a month, which is quite staggering, really, isn't it?
Yeah, because the numbers don't add up. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the same study I have. You know, you have to pay for your broadband connection, and then you start to pay. So I kind of don't get it. But on the other hand, 2.5% of the U.S. market is still a big market.
True.
But I don't see it long-term.
I suppose that comes back to exclusivity to a certain extent as well.
Yeah.
If you've got something on Amazon,
we do. We have Netflix and we have Amazon at home, and we have BT.
There you go.
And there's nothing on.
Do you think that sort of model could be replicated in, say, the Nordic markets where SVOD is so prevalent?
Yeah, to a limited extent, but I think the size of the market is just totally different. There's 8 million people in Sweden. There's, 250, 260 million in the U.S. 2% of 8 million and 2% of 250 million. There's just not a big enough business, I think. And that's why I think we've seen some of the entrants. Also, what we forget when we talk about the Netflix juggernaut is we forget about the importance of localized content.
Yes.
And again, Scandinavia is probably one of the more American, I guess, markets. But if we start to look, say, into Southeast Asia, you know, Netflix, Malaysian content, it's important to be in the local language. And so, I think that smaller markets mean there's only a few players, and that local content's the most important.
Yeah, to be fair to Netflix, I think they're introducing more and more international content. For example, I think they introduced more African content for the American market very recently. So
they are doing some of that Nollywood stuff.
I think they're doing a bit more than they were before. So it's not just Hollywood blockbusters, but it is quite interesting. And I think we discussed this on the panel slightly about the transferability of content across international markets. But and also the counter is the importance of localization of content.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody watches. Obviously, I'm American, but I've lived overseas for many years, and you forget when you live in the U.S. you have this super-centric view, but then you have to go abroad and you say, actually, people do want to watch soap operas in Swedish or Australia, whatever. And it's hugely important, and we forget that sitting in the U.S.
Sure. Okay, let's go back to the piracy issues. And even VPNs. Is this something that you're coming across more than perhaps the press cover?
Well, it's funny. As I said, our new CEO has lived in China, and he likes to tell the story about how bad the connectivity is. But what he always says is, well, because then I had to slap a VPN on top of it.
Okay.
So VPN is a logical response to the licensing of content.
Yeah.
We believe, again, sort of we meaning Vodler is a Swedish company, we believe very much in sort of a universal access to content, a bit of there's a flavor of the Pirate Bay that runs through the Nordic region, but I think it's a rational response. I understand, again, being from the content side, why we're slicing the content, why we're windowing it, why we can't put it all on digitally, why Netflix, even though they're asking for global rights, can't get it, which is their VPN problem.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, if you don't give the market what they want, they'll either pirate it directly, and there's this thing called BitTorrent, which is the darker side of P2P. You can get anything, crowdsourced, subtitled up there within 12 hours of U.S. broadcast, or you VPN it. And I think it's a very logical market response, even if it's not a respectful copyright response. And I think it's something the content industry continually puts their head in the sand about and pretends that this content is not out there. And they're going to protect their 500,000 licensing deal with HBO. A particular producer, in fact, told me this. And I said, but all your content's been available for 6 months already in that market. And
it's a very tricky situation. I don't want just to focus on Netflix, but before Netflix launched in Australia in March, people were saying there are at least 200,000 homes in Australia that are subscribed to Netflix US.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that people should do this or do it, but I mean, if you're subscribing to Netflix US in Australia, you've got more content on the US service and more, and also newer, fresher content because the release dates and everything.
Exactly.
What is your incentive to convert to the Australian service? It's a bit of a dilemma, not just for Netflix, but for all the other
everybody,
services.
yeah. I think it's a huge thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And okay, well, we covered that. And the mobile issues, then Marla. So we were talking about mobile and network congestion and everything like that. What's your experience on that side of things?
Right. Well, this is obviously our sweet spot, so I'll do a plug. I mean, when we talk about emerging markets, like in the West, we talk about the mobile as more like a companion screen or your tablet, but then you're flinging it to the big screen. It doesn't happen in emerging markets. Like again, I appreciate Africa as a continent, not a country, but if we start talking about sub-Saharan Africa, I mean, it's mobile first. There's just no question. People are watching everything on that phone, and you have to be able to get the content to that phone. And increasingly, we're starting to see SVOD services launch. So you need to not only get it to them, you need to get them to pay, and then if they pay, they need to have a really good experience. And that's not happening. The networks, particularly, again, we're talking Southeast Asia, say Nigeria, not great. And that last mile between, again, CDN's coming in force, but they can't solve that last mile problem, and that's where our technology plays. So I'll stop pitching, but we think it's a big problem,
okay.
And we think also if you look at piracy in these markets, it's driven in part because it's a P2P distribution, which gives you a better quality of service.
Sure. So, but you're saying last mile, are you saying the fixed networks?
I'm talking the mobile. I'm talking between the tower and the mobile phone.
Right, okay, so both
so
fixed and
last
mobile.
mile, yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. Are there any questions quickly from the audience?
I'm surprised anyone's here, let alone awake.
Well,
so thank you.
You're interesting.
Thank you.
That's fine. Any questions from the audience? I know I overran before, so I apologise, Marla, to you.
That's okay.
I hope I don't feel like I'm rushing you. No questions? Everyone was going to save their questions for afterwards, Marla, I think. Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much, everyone, and please join me in thanking Marla for her insights into this matter. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.